Meditations for Every Day in the Year by Bishop Richard Challoner. February 9th, on the manner of doing penance for our sins. Consider first that the true manner of doing penance for our sins is not to be learned from the maxims or from the common practice of the children of this world, who fear nothing more than the hurting of themselves or the contradicting of their own humours, appetites, and inclinations. And therefore this bringing forth fruits worthy of penance is to them a hard saying, which they cannot endure to hear. But the true manner of doing penance for sin is to be learned of the children of light, that is, from the doctrine and practice of the saints, who, as they had quite other ideas of the evil of sin than worldlings have, so also they had a very different way of thinking and of acting in regard to penance, as they have demonstrated by the penitential austerities to which they have condemned themselves all their lifetime for expiation of the punishment due to their sins. And what are so many religious orders in the Church of God, in which so many thousands of both sexes, retiring from the world, dedicate themselves to daily mortifications and penances, but so many standing memorials and living instances of that true manner of doing penance with which the Spirit of God usually inspires those whom he conceives of sin, that is to say, whom he makes sensible of the heinousness of the evil of sin, and how much ought to be done for the expiation of it. Consider, secondly, how this same Spirit of God dictated to the ancient Church those rules and ordinances commonly called the penitential canons, which were in force for many hundred years, by which penitent sinners were subjected to diverse fasts and other humiliations for 3, 7, 10, and sometimes for 15 years or more for one mortal sin, and yet did not think they did too much. Oh, how ought this to convince sinners that there is something more to be done for the remission of their sins than they have hitherto been aware of. For, though according to the modern discipline of the Church, those penitential canons are not enforced, yet as God is still the same, and sin is still as heinous in his eyes as it was in former ages, so the sinner stands no less indebted at present to the divine justice than formerly, and therefore ought to think upon discharging this debt in the best manner he is able, by frequent fasting and other corporal mortifications, as well as by alms deeds and long-continued prayer. Consider, thirdly, that there are 3 particular practices of penance which ought never to be forgotten by any such as have at any time in life been guilty of mortal sin. The first and principal is that they should go daily in spirit to the feet of Christ to wash them with penitential tears, flowing from a loving heart, and there earnestly beg pardon for all their past offences through his precious blood. The second, which will naturally flow from the first, is that having their sins thus always before their eyes, they should daily offer up to God, in penance for them, some voluntary mortifications of their own will, honour, or appetite, at least in lesser things, if they have not the courage or strength to undertake greater. For instance, that they should in this spirit rise early in the morning, retrench superfluities in eating, drinking, sleeping, and diversions, and mortify upon every occasion their vanity, curiosity, and sensuality. The third is that they should also offer up daily for their sins, in a penitential spirit, all the labours to which their state of life is exposed, with all their pains and sufferings of every kind, which they may have to endure in life or death, to be united to and sanctified by the labours and sufferings of the Son of God, considering themselves all the while as under a course of penance laid on them by the Almighty for their sins, and going through it with humility, patience, and courage. Whosoever shall diligently persevere in the practice of these 3 things will one day be received as true penitents, and receive the crown of true penitence, through their circumstances of life, strength, or health, may not have omitted of any other penitential austerities. But no condition of life, or other circumstances whatsoever, ought to dispense any sinner from these 3 most easy and most wholesome exercises of penance. Conclude, upon doing penance for thy sins, in the best manner thou art able, now, whilst thou hast time before thee, lest otherwise thou be surprised and overtaken by the night, and mayest then wish in vain to have done penance, when time shall be no more.